Dr. Kim Tae-ho floated in the observation deck of the International Space Station, watching Earth turn slowly below him. The blue marble looked peaceful from up here, but he knew better. Down there, hurricanes raged across the Pacific. Earthquakes shook the Ring of Fire, and millions of species fought for survival every single day. He was studying radiation patterns in space when his instruments started screaming. The energy readings made no sense. Massive objects were moving toward Earth from the outer solar system, but they were not asteroids or comets. The signatures looked artificial, purposeful, and impossibly large. Tae-ho grabbed his communication device and called Earth Defense Command. Immediately, Park So-jin was having coffee in her office at Earth Defense Command when the call came through. As a military strategist, she had planned for many scenarios, but alien contact was still theoretical. When Tae-ho explained what he was seeing, her blood went cold. She activated the global alert system, and within minutes, every major military installation on Earth was mobilized. The alien ships appeared 3 hours later. They materialized above New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, and a dozen other major cities. Each ship was the size of a small island, and they hung in the sky like dark metal clouds. The world held its breath as billions of people looked up at humanity's. First visitors from the stars, Commander Vexatal stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked down at the blue world below. This was routine work for him. His Chitharian Empire had done this 847 times before across the galaxy. Find a new species, evaluate their threat level, and either bring them into the Galactic Council as servants or eliminate them completely. Process was always the same and always successful. The Council had perfected their methods over 10,000 years. First came the show of force to demonstrate superior technology. Then came the compliance inducers, neural disruption weapons that caused immediate paralysis and unbearable pain. Every known species in the galaxy surrendered within hours when faced with these weapons. After surrender came integration as a servant race or complete destruction if they proved too dangerous. Vextal studied the readings from the planet's surface. The humans had primitive technology and no space-based defenses worth mentioning. Their population was scattered across multiple continents with no unified government. They fought constant wars among themselves using chemical explosives and metal projectiles. By galactic standards, they were barely more advanced than animals. Lee Min-ho was eating lunch with his squad when the sirens started wailing across the Korean Defense Forces base. Within minutes, they were suited up and moving toward their positions. Through his binoculars, he could see the massive alien ship hanging over Seoul like a dark storm cloud. His hands shook as he checked his rifle, but his voice stayed steady when he called out orders to his men. The first alien broadcast came simultaneously across every communication channel on Earth. The voice was cold and mechanical, speaking perfect. English, Korean, Mandarin, Spanish, and every other major language at once. The message was simple and terrifying. Humanity had been evaluated by the Galactic Council. Earth would become a member world under Council authority. Resistance would result in immediate pacification. Park So-jin coordinated the global response from her command center. Every nation on Earth was suddenly working together for the first time in human history. Nuclear weapons were useless against shields that could deflect entire asteroid impacts. Conventional forces seemed laughable against technology that could cross interstellar space, but she refused to give up without a fight. The compliance inducers activated exactly 1 hour after the surrender deadline passed. Invisible energy waves swept across the planet, targeting the neural systems of every human being on Earth. The weapons had been tested on 847 different species, and the result was always instant submission. Pain receptors would overload, motor. Functions would shut down, and conscious resistance would become impossible. Lee Min-ho felt the wave hit him like a hammer to his brain. Every nerve in his body erupted in agony beyond anything he had ever experienced. His vision went white, and his muscles seized up. For a moment, he thought he was going to die from the pain alone. But then something strange happened. The pain was still there, crushing and overwhelming, but he could think through it. Around him, his squad members were screaming and falling to their knees. But they were not unconscious. They were not paralyzed. They were in terrible pain. But they were still moving, still thinking, still fighting. Minho forced himself to stand up despite the agony and grabbed his rifle. If the aliens wanted a fight, they would get one. Commander Vextel stared at his tactical displays in complete confusion. The compliance inducers were working perfectly, delivering pain levels that should have rendered every human unconscious. But the readings showed continued human activity across the planet. Military units were still moving. Communication networks were still active. Some humans were even launching counterattacks against his ground forces. Dr. Kim Tae-ho watched from the space station as explosions lit up the night side of Earth. The aliens had landed troops in major population centers, expecting to find a paralyzed and helpless species. Instead, they found humans who fought back with desperate fury, despite being in constant agony. The space-based sensors showed something impossible happening on every continent. The battle for Seoul became the first major engagement between humans and aliens. Lee Min-ho led his squad in a direct assault on an alien landing zone, while neural disruptors tried to shut down their brains. The pain was so intense that several soldiers vomited inside their helmets, but they kept moving forward. They used explosives to breach alien defenses and small arms fire to target weak points in alien armor park. So-jin received reports from around the world that defied all logic. Humans everywhere were fighting through pain levels that should have killed them. In New York, a police squad had captured an alien weapon and turned it against its creators. In London, civilians were throwing Molotov cocktails at alien vehicles while screaming in agony. In Moscow, an entire army division was advancing. Under neural bombardment, the aliens had never encountered anything like this in 10,000 years of galactic conquest. Their weapons worked exactly as designed, delivering precise neural disruption that overwhelmed pain receptors and shut down motor functions. But these humans seemed to possess some impossible resistance to effects that had subdued every other. Known species in the galaxy, Commander Vextel activated his emergency communication array and sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council. For the first time in recorded history, a species was actively resisting compliance inducers. The humans were not just surviving the neural attacks, they were fighting back while under their effects. The situation required immediate council attention and possible escalation to higher-level weapons. Lee Min-ho and his squad reached the alien command post after 6 hours of fighting through continuous neural bombardment. His men moved like drunk people, stumbling and falling but never stopping. The aliens inside seemed shocked that humans could function at all under their weapons. When the smoke cleared, the aliens were dead and the humans had captured their first piece of alien technology. Dr. Kim Tae-ho monitored alien communications from his position in orbit. The intercepted transmissions showed panic and confusion among the alien forces. They were requesting reinforcements and authorization to use stronger weapons. Something in their tone suggested they had never needed to make such requests before. Park So-jin realized that humanity had achieved something impossible. They were not winning the war, but they were not losing either. Every other species in galactic history had surrendered within hours of first contact with compliance inducers. Humans had been fighting for an entire day while under constant neural attack. Whatever made humans different from other species, it was keeping them in the fight. As night fell across the battlefields of Earth, Lee Min-ho looked up at the alien ships still hanging in the sky. His body felt like it was on fire and his head pounded with unrelenting pain. But he was still standing, still fighting, still human. The aliens had brought weapons that could break any species in the galaxy. They had not counted on meeting a species that pain could not break. Dr. Choi Yu-jin had not slept in 3 days. Her laboratory in Seoul was surrounded by the sounds of ongoing battle, but she barely noticed the explosions anymore. She was too focused on the brain scans spread across her monitors. The neural activity, patterns she was seeing should have been impossible under alien neural bombardment. Her test subjects were volunteers from Lee Min-ho's squad, soldiers who had been fighting under compliance inducer effects for over 48 hours. The alien weapons were definitely working, flooding their pain receptors with signals that should have caused instant unconsciousness. But human brains were doing something that defied every known principle of neuroscience. The scans showed massive spikes in cortical activity far beyond normal human limits. Pain centers were overloaded, but instead of shutting down, other brain regions were compensating. The soldiers were literally rewiring their neural pathways in real time to function through agony that would kill most Earth animals. Yu-Jin had never seen adaptive capacity like this in any living creature. Captain Jong Won-sik received his orders at dawn on the third day of fighting. His unit was tasked with taking an alien communications outpost that had been directing attacks across the Korean peninsula. The mission was suicide under normal circumstances. But nothing about this war was normal anymore. 1-6 soldiers moved through the city streets like walking nightmares. They stumbled and fell constantly as neural disruptors hammered their brains, but they never stopped advancing. Civilian volunteers joined them along the way. Ordinary people who should have been paralyzed by alien weapons, but instead picked up rifles and followed the soldiers into battle. The alien outpost was defended by creatures that looked like giant insects in powered armor. They had energy weapons that could melt concrete and personal shields that deflected human bullets. But they seemed completely unprepared for enemies who could fight through their most powerful defensive systems. When 1-6 troops reached the compound walls, the aliens retreated in what looked like panic. Kim Da-eun was the first human to show signs of adaptation to specific neural frequencies. She had been in continuous combat for 4 days when her squad noticed that certain alien weapons seemed to affect her less than others. Dr. Yu-Jin brought her into the lab immediately and found something remarkable in her brain chemistry. Da-eun's neural pathways had physically changed in response to repeated exposure to alien weapons. Her pain receptors were developing resistance to specific frequencies, while her motor cortex was creating new connections to bypass damaged areas. She was evolving in real time, becoming immune to weapons that had never failed before in galactic history. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session as reports poured in from the human home world. Council member Thivek reviewed the tactical summaries with growing alarm. Ground forces were being pushed back despite overwhelming technological superiority. Air support was ineffective against humans who continued fighting even when their aircraft were destroyed. Naval bombardment had failed to break human resistance in coastal cities. Research Prime Kelthon presented his preliminary analysis to the assembled council representatives. Every previous conquest had followed the same pattern. Compliance inducers rendered the target species helpless. Ground forces secured population centers, and integration or elimination proceeded smoothly. The human anomaly threatened the entire foundation of council military doctrine. The decision to escalate to biological pacification was not made lightly. These weapons had been used only 7 times in Council history against species that proved too dangerous to integrate. Engineered plagues were released that targeted specific genetic markers, wiping out entire planetary populations within weeks while leaving the worlds habitable for Council colonization. Professor Yang Soo-bin was working in her biochemistry lab when the first biological agents were detected in Earth's atmosphere. The alien-designed organisms were incredibly sophisticated, targeting human DNA with surgical precision. Under normal circumstances, they would have spread across the planet within days, killing every human being while leaving other species untouched. But Earth was not a normal world by galactic standards. Yang Soo-bin quickly realized that human genetic diversity was far beyond anything the aliens had encountered before. Most galactic species had evolved on stable worlds with limited environmental pressures. Their populations were genetically homogeneous, making them vulnerable to biological warfare designed for their specific genome. Humans had evolved on a world where genetic diversity meant survival. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and countless other disasters had shaped human evolution for millions of years. The result was a species with immune systems that could adapt to almost any biological threat. The alien plagues found human populations that were too genetically diverse to target effectively. Captain Wansik led the first successful capture of an intact alien weapons system when his unit overran a firebase outside Seoul. The energy cannons and neural disruptors were immediately transported to human research facilities, where teams of scientists began reverse engineering alien technology. While still under neural bombardment, the breakthrough came when engineer Nam Tae-woon discovered that alien weapons were designed around assumptions about neural architecture that simply did not apply to humans. Other galactic species had evolved standardized pain responses that made compliance inducers universally effective. Human pain tolerance was so far outside galactic norms that the weapons were essentially useless. Reports from around Earth confirmed that human resistance was not just holding, but actually growing stronger. Military units that had been fighting for a week were showing improved coordination despite continuous neural attack. Civilian populations were organizing their own defense forces using captured alien equipment. Some regions were beginning to push alien forces back toward their landing zones. Dr. Choi Yu-jin published her findings on a secure military network that had been hardened against alien interference. Human neural plasticity was approximately 1,000 times greater than the galactic average. The constant environmental pressures of Earth had created brains that could adapt to almost any external stimulus, including alien weapons designed to override conscious thought. The implications were staggering. Humans were not just resistant to specific alien weapons, they were fundamentally different from every other known species in the galaxy. Earth's harsh environment had forged something unprecedented in galactic evolution. A species that could adapt to threats faster than weapons could be developed to counter them. Kim Da-yoon returned to combat after her medical evaluation with modifications made to her equipment based on her developing immunities. Her unit became the first to use captured alien weapons against their creators. The psychological effect on alien forces was immediate and devastating. Their own technology was being turned against them by creatures that should have been incapacitated. Commander Vextal found himself in the unprecedented position of requesting additional reinforcements for what should have been a routine pacification mission. His reports to the Council described human capabilities that seemed impossible according to all known science. Biological weapons had failed, neural disruptors were ineffective, and human forces were actually capturing and using Council technology. The Council's response was swift and alarmed. Advanced weapons that had never been needed against primitive species were authorized for immediate deployment. Reality warping psionic devices that could alter the laws of physics in localized areas were prepared for transport to the human home world. But even as more powerful weapons were being prepared, reports continued to arrive that challenged everything. The Council thought they knew about warfare. Human forces led by officers like Captain Wansik were not just surviving impossible odds, they were learning from every encounter and becoming more effective with each passing day. Professor Yang Subin made a discovery that would change the course of the war. Analysis of captured alien biological agents revealed that they were designed for species with genetic bottlenecks caused by peaceful evolution. Most galactic races had never faced the kind of environmental pressures that required genetic diversity. For survival, Earth was different. Volcanic activity, asteroid impacts, ice ages, and countless other disasters had repeatedly reduced human populations to small groups that then had to rebuild civilization. Each bottleneck had been followed by rapid expansion and genetic diversification. The result was a species with biological resilience that exceeded galactic understanding. Dr. Kim Tae-ho watched from orbit as the war entered its second week. Alien. Reinforcements continued to arrive, but human resistance was spreading across the globe. Something fundamental had changed in the balance of power. For the first time in Council history, a primitive species was not only surviving first contact, but actually fighting back effectively. The neural bombardment that should have ended human resistance in hours had instead revealed capabilities that no one had expected. Pain tolerance, adaptive capacity, genetic diversity, and technological innovation had combined to create something that the galaxy had never seen before. A species that could not be conquered by conventional means. Research Prime Kelthon arrived at Earth personally when the Council's top weapons continued to fail against human resistance. His massive ship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a dark moon, bristling with scientific equipment and reality scanning, devices that could analyze matter at the quantum level. The Council needed answers about the human anomaly. Dr. Shin Haye-won was captured during an alien raid on Seoul National University and brought aboard Kelthon's research vessel. As Earth's leading evolutionary biologist, she possessed knowledge that the aliens desperately needed to understand human capabilities. The neural restraints they used on her barely slowed her thinking process. Another impossibility that frustrated her captors, Kelthon studied the human scientist with instruments that could map every neuron in her brain while she remained conscious. Other species became catatonic when subjected to such invasive scanning, but Haye-won continued to observe and analyze even while being dissected mentally. Her resistance to procedures that had broken thousands of research subjects amazed the alien scientist. Colonel Bae Jin-woo had been leading resistance operations in the mountains outside Seoul when his scouts reported the arrival of the massive research ship. His unit had successfully captured and modified several alien weapons over the past 2 weeks, turning neural disruptors into communication jammers and energy cannons into mining tools for underground bunkers tech specialist Yu. Minji worked alongside Jin-woo's team to reverse engineer alien technology using nothing but human intuition and salvaged components. Her background was in computer programming, but she found alien systems surprisingly easy to understand once she stopped thinking like a human and started thinking like a predator hunting for weaknesses. The breakthrough in understanding came when Kelthon forced Dr. Haye-won to explain human evolutionary history under neural interrogation. What she told him challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about the development of intelligent life. Most species had evolved on worlds that were stable, peaceful, and nurturing compared to the hellscape that had forged humanity. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world by galactic standards, meaning it should have been completely uninhabitable for complex life. Constant volcanic activity, asteroid bombardments, ice ages, radiation storms, gravitational anomalies, and atmospheric instability created conditions that would kill most galactic species within hours. Dr. Haye-won explained that human ancestors had survived dozens of extinction events that would have wiped out any other known species. The Toba supervolcano eruption that reduced human populations to fewer than 10,000 individuals. The ice ages that forced constant migration and adaptation. The asteroid impacts that reshaped continents and destroyed entire ecosystems, each. Disaster had acted as an evolutionary filter, eliminating humans who could not adapt quickly enough and selecting for those with maximum flexibility and resilience. Over millions of years, this process had created something unprecedented in galactic biology. A species optimized for survival under impossible conditions. Kelthon realized with growing horror that humans were essentially living weapons shaped by their environment. Every aspect of human physiology that seemed primitive by galactic standards was actually a sophisticated adaptation to survival on a world that actively tried to kill its inhabitants every single day. Human pain tolerance was not just unusual, it was necessary for survival on a planet where minor injuries could become fatal without immediate action. Human immune systems were not just robust, they were designed to fight off diseases and toxins that would kill most galactic species instantly. Human neural plasticity was not just impressive, it was essential for adapting to rapidly changing environmental conditions. Captain Lee Hyo-jin led her unit in the first successful assault on a heavily defended alien research facility. Her soldiers moved through energy barriers that should have been impossible to penetrate, using nothing but determination, and captured alien equipment they barely understood. The aliens inside seemed shocked that humans could breach defenses, designed to stop armies. The capture of the research facility yielded intelligence that changed human understanding of the galactic situation. Aliens had conquered 847 worlds using the same basic strategy every time. They identified species during their early technological development, evaluated their threat potential, and either integrated them as servants or eliminated them as competitors. But the evaluation process was based on assumptions about evolution that did not apply to Earth. Most galactic species had developed intelligence on worlds with stable climates, abundant resources, and limited environmental pressures. They achieved spaceflight through cooperation and gradual technological advancement over millions of years. Humans had achieved the same level of development in a fraction of the time because Earth forced rapid innovation or death. Human technology was primitive by galactic standards, but human adaptability was so far beyond galactic norms that it made up for technological disadvantages. Yu Min-ji made the discovery that would reshape human resistance when she successfully hacked into alien command networks using modified human communication equipment. The aliens had never encountered electronic warfare because most galactic species were too peaceful to develop aggressive computer systems. Intelligence analyst Lim So-young coordinated the processing of captured alien data and made a shocking discovery about the galactic power structure. The Galactic Council was not a federation of equals but a rigid hierarchy where more advanced species dominated primitive ones through superior weapons technology. The Council's power was built entirely on the assumption that newer species would always submit to older ones because resistance was impossible. If humans could successfully resist Council weapons, it would prove that the entire galactic order was built on false foundations. Dr. Shin Hee-won escaped from alien custody when human forces overran Kelthon's research ship during a coordinated assault led by Colonel Jin Woo. The data she had gathered during her captivity revealed the true scope of the galactic threat. The Council controlled over 10,000 worlds and commanded resources that dwarfed anything Earth could produce. But she had also learned something that gave her hope. Most Council species were essentially domesticated by millions of years of peaceful evolution. They had technology but no innovation, weapons but no warrior spirit, intelligence but no creativity. They won wars through overwhelming force applied according to rigid doctrines that had never been challenged. General Kim Jae-sung received Haewan's intelligence reports and realized that humanity had a chance of victory despite impossible odds. Human forces could not match alien technology, but they could exploit alien weaknesses that other species had never tested. Council forces were unprepared for enemies who adapted faster than protocols could be updated. The war entered a new phase. When human engineers began mass-producing hybrid weapons that combined alien technology with human innovation, neural disruptors became pain amplifiers that could be turned against their creators. Energy shields were modified into explosive devices that overloaded when subjected to specific frequencies. Linguist Hong Yun-ji led the effort to decode alien communications and discovered that panic was spreading through Council forces. Military commanders were requesting weapons and strategies that had never been needed before. Political leaders were questioning whether the human threat justified the resources being committed to Earth. Dr. Oh Dong-hyun analyzed captured Council political documents and found evidence of growing internal dissent. Several alien species were beginning to question whether Council expansion policies were justified if they could provoke resistance from species like humanity. The prospect of facing multiple human-level threats was causing fear throughout the Galactic Government Research Prime Kelthon sent desperate reports to the Council describing capabilities that seemed impossible according to established science. Humans were not just resistant to Council weapons, they were immune to many of them and actively turning others to their advantage. The species showed innovation capacity that exceeded anything in recorded galactic history. The revelation that terrified the Council most was the discovery that human resistance was growing stronger rather than weaker over time. Other species became demoralized by prolonged warfare, but humans seemed to thrive on conflict. Extended battles were making human forces more effective rather than wearing them down. Colonel Jin Woo coordinated the first human counteroffensive. When resistance cells around the world launched simultaneous attacks on alien installations, the psychological impact on Council forces was devastating. For the first time in 10,000 years, a primitive species was taking the offensive against Council military might. Professor Yang Subin made the final piece of the puzzle fall into place when she completed her analysis of comparative evolutionary biology between humans and typical galactic species. The difference was not just in degree, but in fundamental nature. Most aliens had evolved as prey animals that achieved intelligence through cooperation and submission to stronger forces. Humans had evolved as apex predators that achieved intelligence through competition and dominance over hostile environments. The neural patterns that made other species submit to authority made humans fight harder when challenged. Admiral Park Sung-ho stood in the ruins of what had once been the United Nations building in New York, now serving as humanity's global resistance headquarters. Through the shattered windows, he could see alien reinforcement fleets arriving in Earth's orbit like dark storm clouds. The Council was escalating beyond anything they had used in their 10,000-year history. Dr. Quan Ye-jin worked frantically in her quantum physics laboratory deep beneath the rubble of Seoul as reality-warping weapons began to deploy across Earth's surface. The new alien devices could alter fundamental laws of physics in localized areas, making gravity reverse direction or causing matter to phase in and out of existence. By all scientific understanding, no primitive species should be able to counter such technology. But Ye-jin discovered something remarkable when she analyzed the quantum signatures of the reality warpers. Human consciousness seemed to interact with quantum fields in ways that alien science had never anticipated. Where other species would be helplessly manipulated by reality distortion, human observers could actually stabilize local space-time through what appeared to be pure intuitive understanding. The weapons that were supposed to drive humans insane by making their universe unpredictable, instead triggered adaptive responses that allowed humans to function in altered reality zones. Soldiers learned to fight in areas where up was down and bullets could travel through solid walls. Civilians adapted to neighborhoods where time moved backwards and water flowed uphill. Admiral Sung-ho coordinated the global response as reports came in from every continent. Reality warpers were definitely affecting human forces, but not in the way the aliens expected. Instead of breaking human resistance, the impossible conditions were forcing humans to develop capabilities that should not have existed in any known. Species intelligence analyst Lim So-young intercepted alien communications that revealed growing panic among Council forces. Military commanders were reporting that human forces continued to adapt to every new weapon system faster than countermeasures could be developed. Some alien units were actually retreating from areas where reality had been destabilized because humans seemed more comfortable in the altered zones than the aliens who had created them. The intelligence breakthrough came when Lim So-young decoded high-level Council transmissions discussing something called the Helix-Tari protocols. Several member species within the Council were quietly expressing support for human independence, creating the first internal dissent in recorded galactic history. General Kim Jae-sung led the most audacious operation of the war when his forces captured an intact Council command ship using nothing but modified alien technology and human tactical innovation. The vessel was a kilometer long and contained weapons that could destroy planets, but its crew had never encountered boarding parties that could fight through reality distortion fields. The captured ship yielded intelligence that revolutionized human understanding of galactic politics. The Council was not the monolithic entity it appeared to be, but a complex alliance of species held together by fear and mutual dependence. Many member races had joined voluntarily, but others had been conquered and integrated against their will. Engineer Nam Tae-woon led the team that reverse-engineered the command ship's systems and made a discovery that would change the course of the war. Council technology was incredibly advanced but also incredibly standardized. Every weapon system, every defensive protocol, every tactical doctrine was based on templates that had remained unchanged for thousands of years. The Council's strength was also its weakness. Their weapons were so effective against typical galactic species that they had never needed to innovate. Human resistance was forcing them to develop new strategies for the first time in millennia, but their entire military structure was built around unchanging superiority. Dr. Kwon Ye-jin made the breakthrough that allowed humans to not just survive reality-warping attacks, but actually turn them to human advantage. By understanding how human consciousness interacted with quantum fields, she developed techniques that allowed soldiers to consciously manipulate localized reality distortions. Human forces began using alien reality warpers as tools rather than weapons. Gravity fields became tactical advantages that allowed impossible maneuvers. Time distortion zones became shields that slowed enemy projectiles. Matter phase shifters became stealth technology that let human troops move through solid barriers. The psychological impact on Council forces was catastrophic. Their most advanced weapons were not just ineffective against humans, they were actually making human forces more dangerous. Reports reached the Council of human soldiers walking through walls, reversing time to avoid fatal injuries, and manipulating gravity to achieve impossible tactical positions. Ambassador Cho Min-soo emerged as humanity's voice in the secret negotiations that began when moderate Council species reached out through captured communication channels. The Helix Tari, a peaceful species that had joined the Council voluntarily, proposed a radical alternative to continued warfare. The Helix Tari had been observing human resistance with growing admiration and realized that humanity represented something that could benefit the entire galaxy. Instead of another conquered servant race, humans could become partners in a reformed galactic confederation based on cooperation rather than domination. Dr. Yoon Hae-jin led the research team that achieved the impossible by successfully improving upon captured Council technology. Human innovations increased the efficiency of alien energy systems by factors that amazed even the original designers. The modifications were so effective that some Council species began requesting human-modified equipment through unofficial channels. The demonstrations of human technological adaptation sent shockwaves through the galactic community. A species that had achieved spaceflight only recently was not just matching Council technology, but actually advancing it beyond what civilizations with millions of years of development had achieved. President Kang So-hee addressed the world from the rebuilt Resistance headquarters as reports arrived of Council member species openly supporting human independence. The Silmari had withdrawn their forces from Earth operations. The Veltrian Collective had declared neutrality. Even some hardline Council species were questioning whether continued warfare served galactic interests. The war was transforming from a simple conquest into a galactic civil war, as species that had been suppressed for millennia began to see hope in human resistance. The possibility that the Council could be defeated by a primitive species was inspiring rebellion across hundreds of worlds. General Ju Min-seok coordinated the defense of Earth as loyalist Council forces prepared for what appeared to be a final assault. Massive fleets were gathering in the outer solar system, armed with weapons that could sterilize entire planets. But intelligence reports suggested that many Council species were reluctant participants in the offensive. The captured command ship provided humans with detailed information about Council military capabilities and revealed something crucial about galactic warfare. Most Council conflicts were decided by the threat of overwhelming force rather than actual combat. Species surrendered when faced with superior technology rather than testing whether that technology could actually defeat them. Humans had done what no other species had attempted in 10,000 years. They had called the Council's bluff and discovered that galactic military might was built more on reputation than reality. Council weapons were effective against species that submitted to them, but far less effective against species that fought back intelligently. Dr. Shin Hee-won published her complete analysis of comparative evolution and revealed why humans were unique in galactic history. Most intelligent species had evolved from social animals that survived through cooperation and submission to group hierarchy. Humans had evolved from solitary predators that survived through individual innovation and territorial dominance. The biological and psychological differences meant that where other species saw hopeless odds and surrendered, humans saw challenging problems and started solving them. Where other species accepted authority based on superior technology, humans questioned authority and looked for weaknesses to exploit. Engineer Nam Tai-woon achieved the breakthrough that would determine the war's outcome when his team successfully reverse-engineered and mass-produced Council shield technology. Human-manufactured defensive systems proved superior to the originals because human engineers had optimized them for Earth's unique gravitational and electromagnetic conditions. The revelation that humans could not only copy alien technology, but improve upon it, fundamentally changed the strategic balance. Council forces found themselves facing enemies equipped with hybrid weapons that combined the best of alien science with human innovation as the fourth week of fighting drew to a close. Intercepted transmissions revealed that the Council was facing internal collapse. Member species were withdrawing support for the Earth operation. Some were openly calling for peace negotiations. Others were demanding that humans be offered full membership in a reformed galactic government. Admiral Sung-ho realized that humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not just survived first contact with a superior galactic civilization, they had forced that civilization to acknowledge them as equals. Commander Seo Jung-min stood on the bridge of the first human-alien joint fleet in galactic history as it moved toward the final confrontation with Loyalist Council forces. Ships from 12 different species that had broken with the Council flew alongside human vessels equipped with hybrid technology that surpassed anything either side had produced alone. The Halixitari had provided the crucial intelligence that made the alliance possible. 3/4 of Council member species were unwilling participants in the war against Earth, but had been trapped by galactic law that required unanimous consent for military action. The rebellion that started with human resistance had spread. To become a galactic revolution engineer, Nam Tae-woon worked around the clock in the Joint Fleet's technical sections, coordinating teams of human and alien engineers who were discovering that their different approaches to problem-solving produced innovations that neither could achieve alone. Human intuition, combined with alien precision, was creating technology that exceeded the sum of its parts. The Loyalist fleet that awaited them was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 10,000 ships from the core, Council worlds, armed with weapons that could crack planets and shields that had never been penetrated. But intelligence reports suggested that many crews were fighting reluctantly and might switch sides if given the opportunity. Dr. Yoon Hae-jin had spent the past week working with alien scientists to create weapons specifically designed to disable rather than destroy Council ships. The hybrid systems could penetrate any known shield technology but were programmed to target engines and weapons rather than life support. Humanity was fighting for liberation, not extermination. The battle began when the two fleets met in the space between Mars and Jupiter. Energy weapons that could vaporize asteroids lit up the void as ships maneuvered at relativistic speeds. But this was unlike any previous galactic conflict because both sides were learning and adapting in real time, rather than following predetermined tactical doctrines. Commander Jung-min led the Human-Alien Alliance forces in tactics that had never been seen in galactic warfare. Instead of the formal battle lines that had characterized Council conflicts for millennia, the Alliance used fluid formations that allowed rapid adaptation to changing battlefield conditions. Captain Won-sik commanded a squadron of hybrid fighters. that could phase through solid matter using modified reality warping technology. His pilots were human, but his navigators were Helix Atari refugees who understood Council tactical patterns. The combination of human aggressiveness and alien precision proved devastatingly effective. The turning point came when Admiral Park Sung-ho broadcast a message simultaneously to every ship in the Loyalist fleet. Speaking in dozens of alien languages, he offered immediate amnesty to any Council forces that ceased hostilities. Within minutes, entire squadrons were switching sides or withdrawing from combat. President Kang So-hee addressed the galaxy from the Alliance flagship as the battle turned into a rout. The Loyalist forces were collapsing not through military defeat, but through mass defection. Species that had been forced to serve the Council for thousands of years were finally free to choose their own path. General Ju Min-seok coordinated the occupation of key Council installations as Loyalist resistance crumbled throughout the solar system. But the Alliance forces were careful to treat surrendering enemies with respect and offer them the choice of joining the new Galactic Confederation or returning to their homeworlds with full pardons. Dr. Shin Hee-won worked with a team of alien sociologists to document the collapse of the old galactic order and plan the structure of the new confederation. The Council system had been based on rigid hierarchy with older species dominating newer ones. The Confederation would be based on voluntary cooperation between equals. The negotiations for the new galactic government took place on Earth in the ruins of Geneva, symbolically demonstrating that the species that had been marked for extinction was now helping to shape the future of galactic civilization. Ambassador Cho Min-soo led the human delegation in discussions that would restructure 10,000 years of galactic history. Engineer Nam Tai-woon presented the technological proposals that would define the new era. Instead of technology being hoarded by dominant species, the Confederation would share innovations freely. Human adaptive capability combined with alien advanced science would accelerate technological development for all member species. The signing ceremony for the new galactic partnership was held 6 months after first contact. President Kang So-hee placed her signature on a document that transformed Earth from a target for conquest into a founding member of a reformed galactic civilization. The quill she used was made from materials that had been part of the first alien weapon captured by human forces. Dr. Kim Tae-ho returned to his research station in Earth orbit, but now it was part of an integrated network that included alien space, habitats, and research facilities throughout the solar system. The xenobiologist who had detected the first alien ships was now coordinating joint human-alien scientific projects that were advancing understanding of life throughout the galaxy general. Kim Jae-sung established the Joint Defense Command that would protect Confederation worlds from threats both internal and external. Human tactical innovation combined with alien technology and resources created military forces that could respond to any challenge while maintaining the voluntary nature of Confederation membership. Intelligence analyst Lim So-young led the investigation into Council archives that revealed the full scope of galactic oppression over the past 10 millennia. Hundreds of species had been exterminated rather than integrated because they showed signs of independence. Thousands more had been reduced to servant status, despite having capabilities that could have contributed to galactic civilization. The most shocking discovery was evidence that the Council had deliberately suppressed technological and social development to maintain their dominance. Species that developed faster than expected were either eliminated or had their development sabotaged. The galaxy could have been thousands of years more advanced if innovation had been encouraged rather than controlled. Dr. Yoon Hae-jin established the Joint Research Institute, where human and alien scientists worked together on projects that neither could complete alone. The first major success was the development of faster-than-light communication technology that allowed instant contact between worlds thousands of light years apart. The new communication network transformed galactic society by allowing real-time coordination between Confederation members. Species that had been isolated for millennia could suddenly share ideas and innovations. The rate of technological advancement accelerated beyond anything in galactic history. Professor Yang Su-bin led the biological survey project that discovered dozens of species that had been hiding from Council forces for thousands of years. Many had capabilities similar to humans, but had never had the opportunity to demonstrate their potential. The galaxy was far more diverse and capable than the Council had ever acknowledged. Captain Lee Hyojin commanded the first Confederation exploration fleet that ventured beyond the borders of known space. Human curiosity combined with alien navigation. Technology was opening up new regions of the galaxy that had never been explored. Every expedition discovered new wonders and new potential Confederation members. The transformation of galactic civilization was not without challenges. Some hardline. Council species refused to accept the new order and retreated to isolated systems where they maintained the old ways. Occasional conflicts arose between Confederation members over resource allocation and territorial boundaries. But the Confederation had something the Council had never possessed: the ability to adapt and evolve. When problems arose, member species worked together to find solutions rather than imposing them through force. Human innovation provided new approaches, while alien wisdom provided stability and perspective. Dr. Kwon Ye-jin led the team that developed transportation technology based on the reality warping principles that had been used as weapons during the war. The new systems allowed near-instantaneous travel between Confederation worlds, making the galaxy smaller and more connected than ever before. The economic transformation was as dramatic as the political one. Instead of tribute flowing from conquered worlds to Council centers, trade networks developed based on mutual benefit. Human agricultural techniques increased food production on dozens of worlds. Alien manufacturing processes revolutionized human industry. 5 years after first contact, Dr. Kim Tae-ho published his comprehensive study of the war and its aftermath. The title was simple: How Earth Changed the Galaxy. The xenobiologist concluded that humanity's greatest contribution was not technological or military, but philosophical. Humans had demonstrated that intelligence could develop along different evolutionary paths, and that diversity of thought was more valuable than conformity of belief. The galaxy had spent 10,000 years trying to create uniformity and stability. Humanity had shown that progress came from embracing differences and encouraging innovation. Commander Seo Jung-min retired from military service to become an ambassador, traveling between Confederation worlds to help resolve disputes and negotiate new memberships.